Ever since the establishment of the Second Continental Congress on May 10, 1775, Massachusetts delegate John Adams had been a strong advocate for the establishment of an American Navy. But though the establishment of the Continental Army had been done relatively swiftly, the establishment of a Navy was more controversial. An army could be seen as a defensive force, but a Navy was more provocative, signaling a claim to sovereignty and independence. Even after war had broken out in Boston that April, and after Congress had approved of an invasion of Canada for later that year, many still clung to the hope of reconciliation with the mother country. The Olive Branch Petition, a last effort at making amends with Britain, had been ratified by Congress on July 5th, and it would be several months before King George III would send his reply. Southern colonies also feared that a navy would establish more power among the seafaring New Englanders. Furthermore, there was also the fact that their opponent, the British Navy, was the largest naval power in the world, and the idea of trying to challenge them was sheer folly. Chief among the delegates who shared this view were Samuel Chase of Maryland and Edward Rutledge of South Carolina. But Adams did have support even among the southern colonies. One of these was Christopher Gadsden, a South Carolina delegate who had served as an officer in the Royal Navy. He believed that the Royal Navy was not so formidable to America as we fear. He noted the harsh conditions British sailors endured, many of whom had been forcibly impressed into the Navy, and that they would certainly kill their officers if challenged by an American ship. Such an occurrence does seem far-fetched, but among the southern colonies, Gadsden's view was supported by Joseph Hughes of North Carolina and Richard Henry Lee of Virginia. In August, the Rhode Island Assembly had declared the building of an American Navy to be essential and had instructed its delegates to bring the matter before Congress. But the measure was not brought to the floor until October 3rd, and after short debate was tabled for more pressing matters. Ben Franklin was Adams' most influential ally on the issue of a need for an American Navy. But even he lamented that a Navy would not happen until the Congress was no longer fascinated with the idea of reconciliation with Britain. But as the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention, and one of the greatest necessities for the fledgling rebellion was gunpowder and other military supplies. This was a need General George Washington, commanding the Continental Army in Boston at the time, was well aware of. In the summer of 1775, without the knowledge of Congress, he began acquiring ships and converting them into war vessels. On September 2nd, the USS Hannah was the first commissioned armed American naval vessel. Her mission was to capture an enemy ship and seize all the military supplies they may find on board. It took her only a few days to fulfill her mission, and Washington was encouraged to commission more ships for the same task. Back in Philadelphia, Congress would soon be spurred into action. On October 5th, a letter from a London resident sympathetic to the American cause arrived at the Congress, bringing the issue to a head. 2 unarmed British brigs had departed England on August 11th en route to Quebec. Both ships were laden with arms, gunpowder, and other military supplies. The reason these ships were unarmed was because the British didn't think the Americans posed a threat on the high seas. Adams and his allies urged Congress that aggressive action was needed. A passionate argument broke out among the delegates. Finally, by a slim margin, a resolution was passed, appointing a committee of 3 to prepare a plan for intercepting the 2 vessels. The 3 delegates appointed were John Adams, along with Silas Deane of Connecticut, and John Langdon of New Hampshire. They quickly convened their subcommittee and wrote out their own resolution. It proposed to inform General Washington of the 2 British brigs and instructing him that he should apply to the Council of Massachusetts Bay for 2 armed vessels to intercept them. After another heated debate, this new resolution passed, although again by a slim margin. Now, one might think that this would be the start of the U.S. Navy, but the ships they were proposing to use were still under the domain of Massachusetts Bay, not Congress. Still, Adams hoped that Congress was beginning to side with him. However, those hopes were challenged over the next few days. Samuel Chase, leader of the opposition, who had remained mostly silent until now, began mocking Rhode Island's resolution, stating that it is the maddest idea in the world to think of building an American fleet. He reminded the delegates that the Royal Navy was second to none, and when it came to naval power, as far as Congress was aware at the time, America was certainly none. Even though neither side of the issue could declare victory in the matter, it was agreed to table the discussion until October 16th. But early on October 13th, a dispatch arrived at Congress from General Washington. It informed Congress that a new British fleet, which included 6 ships of the line and 5 regiments of Royal Marines, was sailing out from England. The dispatch further said that 4 heavily gunned British ships and 2 transports filled with 600 men were preparing to sail from Boston. Their destination was unknown, but the 2 mortars and 4 howitzers that were loaded on board signaled that a Patriot town could be a target of a bombardment. Those delegates whose homes were within range of naval bombardment were particularly agitated by this warning. Surely they recalled to mind the bombardment of Charlestown, Massachusetts in June of that same year. In an afternoon, the Royal Navy had burnt the entire town to the ground. It was then that Congress finally learned about Washington's Navy, now 3 vessels, outfitted to sail and capture British supplies. Surprisingly, rather than objecting, the delegates were relieved to learn that their own Navy was already providing for their welfare. This time Congress made quick work of proposing the following resolution. Friday, October 13th, 1775. The Congress, taking into consideration the report of the committee appointed to prepare a plan, etc., after some debate, resolved that a swift sailing vessel to carry 10 carriage guns and a proportional number of swivels with 80 men be fitted with all possible dispatch for a cruise of 3 months, and that the commander be instructed to cruise eastward for intercepting such transports as may be laden with warlike stores and other supplies for our enemies and for such other purposes as the Congress shall direct. That a committee of 3 be appointed to prepare an estimate of the expense and lay the same before Congress, and to contract with proper persons to fit out the vessel. Resolved, that another vessel be fitted out for the same purpose, and that the said committee report their opinion of a proper vessel and also an estimate of the expense. The following members were chosen to compose the committee: Mr. Dean, Mr. Langdon, and Mr. Gadsden. Resolved, that the further consideration of the report be referred to Monday next. One could make the argument that Washington had started the U.S. Navy in the summer of 1775 before Congress was even aware of it, but for all intents and purposes, this day, Friday, October 13th, 1775, is the day the U.S. Navy was officially born.